Hi, I'm Peter Marr, a downhomer and longtime NHL play-by-play broadcaster. This is Downhome Hockey on Downhome Corner. It's my pleasure to introduce a couple of guys exploring the game from a downhomer's point of view. Here are your hosts, former player and coach John Paris Jr. with Steve Bujold.
Well, welcome to the inaugural edition of Downhome Hockey. A couple of downhomers kind of exploring and discussing hockey at all different levels. I'm Steve Bujold, and my co-host is John Paris Jr., joining me from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Welcome, John. Nice to be with you. Nice to work with you, John.
Pleasure to be here today, Stephen. It's always great to talk with you, especially when it comes to hockey-related issues.
You know, at this time last year, we were just getting ready to participate in this amazing hockey experience that you had set up, part of the Paris Way Learning Center. I believe it was the second week of July in Brossard, and you held this all at the Montreal Canadiens practice facility, which I mistakenly showed up at for the day that I was supposed to be part of this, which was everything that happened at the hotels. But that was quite an experience last year. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, John?
Yeah, that was an exciting experience. It was more of an exploratory event to start out with. We wanted to monitor and see exactly how we could integrate youth into a more professional, let's just say, aptitudes, expression, and understanding a little bit the cerebral part of the game a little more intensely. Now, what we did, we had mainly, to my surprise, a huge response from professionals from Europe, the United States, different parts of Canada. The youth program, too, I was surprised. We had youths coming from as far away as Kazakhstan, Russia, Copenhagen, and Denmark, Florida, etc., and so forth. So we basically had quite an experience. It was an excellent week. It was a good learning experience also for myself and for the instructors. We had NHL draft picks also that were there, NHL veterans. The people that came along to help us, Stephen, as you're well aware, we had Francois Beauchemin, the Anaheim Ducks, the Director of Development. We had Steve LaRouche, that was the assistant coach in Shawinigan, that is now coaching the CCL team, Midget AAA Development League in Quebec, which is the top midget development league in the world. We've had Julien Gauthier that came in and plays for the New York Rangers, et cetera. We had so many professionals that came in. And we also had the Ray Lalonde, the ex-president of the Montreal Alouettes and the ex-vice president of the Canadiens. We had Dr. Sylvain Guimond, who was the ex-sports psychologist and very eminent in his field with the Montreal Canadiens. And we could go on and on as speakers. So it was quite a week of experience for everyone that was involved. And we had Stephen Bujold that was there. So there you go.
Yeah, and to explain what my part in that was, you wanted to be part of a skit that we would act out a typical conversation between an NHL coach and an NHL general manager. So you were the coach, I was the GM, and we sat down and we talked, which was interesting because even though on my part it was a bit of ad lib and that type of thing, it was interesting that we got to kind of peel some layers off the onion, so to speak. I, at the end of it, thought, gee, I don't know if anybody got anything out of this. And you say that people still talk about that little 7-minute conversation we had.
Oh, yeah. So the information is still piling in, and this is over a year. Now, what really happened there, what made the difference was that we actually went into coach GM one-on-one exactly what went on behind closed doors. Not what you see on the NHL Network where they glorify it a bit, etc. We went exactly to the meat and potatoes, how we discussed the players, what we basically were the directives. We discussed all the directives that were given between the GM spoken, the directives given by voice, and the written even was explained in there. So a lot of parents understood, hey, this is different. A lot of players. The players were understanding things that maybe their agent wasn't telling them what's going on because he didn't know. So there's a lot of things we brought out during that purposely to inform the Joe public of exactly this is how it functions. Don't believe all of that fanfare that you see on television all the time. There's nothing bad. It's business. It's strictly business.
And it's interesting, too, you say it's strictly business, but yet we were able to bring up the human side of it. And that's, to me, was the biggest conduit of information, if you will?
Yes, what we did, we brought out when the coach would explain, well, maybe a family situation, maybe a situation of illness, etc. We brought out the human side of it also that we discussed, because a lot of times the general manager may have had a different viewpoint because he wasn't down there, like we would say, right on the field every day. He's not in the dressing room every day with the players, so he doesn't always have that touch point knowledge where the coach has it, and the coach usually obtains other knowledge through the trainers, equipment manager, his captains, etc., and forming a relationship with every player by meeting with them individually, one-on-one, in a non-formal context.
Yeah, and that certainly is something that's not everybody is going to be privy to, and that's what the attempt was. That we were trying to bring that, when I say human aspect, trying to connect people to what is really going on instead of just a house on a hill, and then the guy comes back down the hill and says, "Here's the proclamation."
Well, for example, the player that wasn't performing well on a certain line playing with a teammate, the GM would say, well, he's not performing. He's not putting points up, or he's not being effective. And then you explain to him, well, listen, they do not cohabit together. They do not have a thought process which is similar. They do not have that same complicity that he would have like with Jimmy instead of having it with John. So if we had put him with Jimmy, let's try that. It'll work out instead of trading him or instead of just sending him down to the minors. Let's experiment. So let's go into the cerebral side. Let's sit down and talk with them and understand a little more, and we'll find out who's at ease with who. Not with a test, simply by experimenting, by putting them together on the ice surface in situations where they have an opportunity to be successful, and let's see how it plays out. And basically, that often changes and makes a difference between the player being traded or sent down to the minors, being discouraged, or thinking that he's less of an athlete than he really is. So a lot of times we have a lot of responsibility, and if you take the humane side out of it, then that's a detriment to the athlete. So we always have to put the athlete in situations where he can be successful or has that possibility to be, by more than just simply watching him execute. We have to help him by putting him with other people. If I jump into an automobile, I do not know how to let's just say, drive an automatic. But I'm used to a manual, and I know nothing about an automatic. Oh, you just slide it into a drive. I know nothing about it. I'm going to have a problem. But if I get into the car and somebody tells me, hey, you know what, it's drive there. Just slide that down there, and you go there, and I'll be watching out for any danger signs, etc. I'm supporting you. Makes a difference, and the assimilation is quicker. So then all of a sudden, hey, I'm not that dumb anymore.
I like to think, a general manager and a coach kind of are building this soup, that they're putting all these different ingredients in and they're stirring it. And sometimes certain ingredients will match up well with others. And sometimes it's better if you add this or less of that, But the thing is, of course, it's all people, and people have personalities, and those are the different flavors, I guess, of a soup, So it's a delicate mix, but it's not just this ingredient works, that one doesn't. Sometimes this ingredient will work with that one, how is that for an analogy?
Yeah, it's most definitely the taste factor, the flavor. But I'll give you another example. One NHL general manager basically stated that if a player walked into his office and asked to be traded, the minute he asked to be traded, he'd trade him. He says, you're gone, you're history. Well, that's wrong. The first thing that a general manager, the astute ones would do would be say, well, okay, what does he bring to the team? And what is the problem here? Why is he coming here? I have to evaluate why. What's the reasoning of all of this? Then what's the benefit to the team? Because the team has to always benefit, while at the same time you're trying to help the player. So that's the humane side of it. So if you have a predisposed idea, if someone walks into your office and asks for a trade, that's it. No discussion. End of it. You're gone. Everybody loses. Nobody wins in that. And the team is the first thing. Hockey's about winning the most amount of games possible. We're talking about the NHL level. That you have to win as many games as possible. The ultimate goal is to win the Stanley Cup. But so if you're not winning hockey games and you tell somebody, well, I traded Jack Smith because he asked to be traded, but I didn't investigate any part of the why or et cetera, or try to figure out a way, understanding the importance that he may have to the team, and the heck with that. He's gone, he asked for it, he's gone. I didn't do my job. And it happens in the NHL. There are some GMs that will just, they take it as personal. They take it as personal, and that's ego. That's where it's wrong.
Well, I mean, a player could very easily be just upset about a certain situation that when he sleeps on it might not seem as bad the next day, too. So, I mean, it could be a knee-jerk reaction to something, and he has to be traded. You don't want to hold him at his word necessarily, right?
Well, what it is usually a player crying out for help.
Yes.
Player in a situation which maybe it's beyond his capabilities of handling, and he feels that the easiest way of handling it is to move. He may be a player that may not be in the right position of being utilized properly, and he doesn't understand that maybe with a decent discussion, you could figure this out. But so he goes to a drastic movement of saying, I want to be traded. Or he overestimates his true value at that moment. There's hockey maturity that kicks in. There's age maturity that kicks in. Your performance factors are all related to how you execute, how you understand the game. So that's, it's a two-party thing, and everybody needs help. General manager's major role is to form a team that's successful on the ice as much as possible. It's formed with many different ingredients. Some people are willing to be uncommon, some are not. You weed out those who are not, and you keep the ones who have the character to go over and above and beyond while staying within their comprehension of their roles. This is where a GM today, the old days, let's be honest here, many of the GMs didn't have an academic education that was very high. Their employment, let's just say when they postulated for a job as a general manager or offered, it was mainly due to their hockey knowledge. They played the game. Well, they were scouting and moved on. But today, there's much more to it. And if I'm hiring a general manager, I'm hiring a college grad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you would be hard pressed to find, I would think, a general manager who didn't finish high school anymore.
Well, no, but I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good point.
We've progressed to a point where, I want a college graduate in there directing, because there's more to it now than it's so complicated. And I would be surrounding myself with as many as highly educated and competent people as possible. If you go back and you look a bit, and I can honestly talk about it, I cannot remember not having all my assistants. Andre Duel in Major Junior was a college prof. Andre Lebrun was a college prof. I had professors that were working with me, and I never thought twice about it. I wanted articulations from my assistant coaches, Scotty Gordon and Coach Young. Scotty's a college grad, played with the Nordiques, etc. Dave Starman, another college graduate who's with the NHL network now. He handles the World Juniors. But people would say, well, why are you always around college guys? I'm a college guy myself. A lot of people aren't aware of that.
I mean, you're a bit of an exception, too, because you came from an era where there wasn't as much of that, but yet you're also a sports psychologist. So, yeah. So you get that.
But the difference maker was I understood that I'm only going to be as good as the strength I have around me.
Yeah.
And I broke it down into different particles. I wanted articulation in one place to make sure everything was understood. I also I didn't want to have a defenseman trying to teach or help better prepare a centerman. I wanted a centerman working with a centerman, a winger working with a winger, defenseman with a defenseman, goaltending coaches when they didn't have them. So this is why and that came from my having had the opportunity of attending training camps also with the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball. I saw exactly how they went.
And you talked about directing traffic in your games. So, that led to some of seeing it from those angles and the coaching aspects. Yeah. Yeah,
I have no merit. There's no merit. John Paris Jr. is no genius. But what I did do is I took from others. I saw what they were doing. I said, oh yeah. Well, I'm going to try that. And you have to be willing to you have to be thick-skinned. You can't be thin-skinned because you're going to be criticized until if you're fortunate enough to win, or you develop. Like I'd always have teams that were in situations of difficulty. So I would have to help prepare them to be better. I never had a problem with that. I accepted it because I enjoyed the development side of it. And you learn as you go. And basically what it all comes back to, once again, is who you surround yourself with. And you have to have solid people around you. Most of the coaches that I've had around me, most of them have become professional coaches or even NHL coaches or NHL assistant coaches. I'm very proud of that.
Well, and you've maintained your contact with a lot of people in the NHL, and it's a sport that people will, if you gain some respect, they'll always be there for you, and that is almost at every level of hockey. But I was surprised to see it in the NHL. People will do favors for other people if they believe in you. Like it's pretty close like that, and it's very helping in a lot of ways. No.
Well, it is today. And if we go back, and it could be a little bit so, a lot of the hockey people will tell you, we're trying to change that mentality of where you hire a friend. Yes. Where you hire a friend of a friend. You have to look at more its comfortability. Do you deserve to be there?
Yeah,
that's what it should be.
And just to clarify, I'm referring to people helping each other out in the game. I'm not referring to helping out at the net, at the general manager or the coaching levels and jobs. No. I'm referring to just each player helping. Yeah, everyday stuff kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, once you're a hockey player or an athlete and you participated in a sport, you could meet somebody. You may not know them. They may have been an adversary. There may have been someone that's played before you at a different era. There may be somebody that came after you. It doesn't really matter. You meet them, you're just like friends. It's just like you have something in common. There's a bond there. And there's an unwritten code that we have in hockey where once you've been involved in the game, everybody respects everybody. Because I'm going to explain one thing, and a lot of people do not understand this. Everybody wants to play at the high elite levels. When you get to the major, junior, college, Division I, NHL levels, AHL, you're a darn good athlete. That's given to a very, very few that are chosen that have those qualities to arrive there. Do not think that that's something easy that you can just wish that will happen. You have to bring a lot more qualities than being just a good minor hockey league player. A lot more. You had better be better than good. So you have to learn to respect those athletes that have arrived there. Once you've been at the higher levels, you understand all the sacrifices, how difficult it is to get there, how very few have the opportunity to be able to stay at those levels that then, oh, gee, this is like winning a lotto. That's just what it's like. It's like winning a lotto. So if you remember that, instead of just saying that your child, he's going to play in the NHL, he's going to be a Division I college player, or my child is good. No, you can love your child, and you can appreciate what they're doing, but keep them well stabilized. Keep them within the thought process. You have to be better than good, and you have to be willing to make sacrifices, and there are other players out there. It's a worldwide sport. So any player that attains those levels are to be highly respected. And that's why there's a respect factor between those that have been involved in the game and that stage, because we all understand exactly what it takes to get there.
Well, everybody knows what it's like. They all know what it's like to be in a gym or to be on the ice, like in a morning skate, or to be, they know what a day of workouts consists of. So, I mean, some will push harder than others and some will go further than others. But in the end, they've all been there. They've all done the work to get to that level. And it's a question of whether or not they continue to do the work to stay at that level or go higher in that level type of thing. So they've all done the work, right?
Right. They've done the work, but they also understand disappointment.
Yes.
They've all seen the player, the young aspiring player, they've seen him come in the room and be released, be traded, having to move his family, or the young man that's crying because he knows maybe he didn't have, I have to meet my mortgage next month, and I was depending on this contract, or his child's ill, or maybe that he didn't go fulfill his academic studies the way he should have, so he doesn't have employment that's waiting for him. So they know exactly. They see the disappointment and all of the heartbreak and all of the problems that come with not being signed to that contract, being kept to for 3 years under a certain contract where you're being paid to perform certain job descriptions. So basically, that makes it even more important because the majority of people have no idea of the numbers that we see, that we've experienced seeing that on a regular basis when we're in the game. It's sad. So That's another huge reason why the fraternity is so tight.
Yeah, because in the end, it's a small percentage that are going to get through that filter for sure, or the series of filters. Really, that's what it is. You're going through a series of different filters, hoping to survive.
That's what it is. And the National Hockey League has 31 teams. They'll have 32 with Seattle coming in. You go down to the American Hockey League, 31. It'll go to 32. You go to the East Coast Hockey League, 31. It'll go to 32. But not all of the East Coast teams have affiliations. So how are you going to fit? If you go back to the 16 era. 16 era, they were dressing 17 skaters a night.
Wow. When you
How
think
are you
of
going to be, people don't, you have to stop and think about that. And even then, it wasn't a worldwide sport because you didn't have the Russians, the Swedes, et cetera, and the Czechs playing. Now, today, it's a worldwide sport. And they may dress 20 players, but between you and I, there's 3 or 4 players that are like a revolving door. And then you have injuries. So there's another up and down factor in and out. So they'll carry 23 and then join the playoffs more, taxi squad. But in a lot of cases, it's a lot more difficult than just saying, I'm going to play in the NHL.
Yeah.
No, you had better say, I'm going to try my best to prepare to my best, to be able to have the opportunity to maybe get invited, just to be invited or drafted to an NHL team, and to make myself a viable solution to be one of their members, to be a help, to bring help, and to make them a winner.
John, what do you think the average mindset right now of the average NHL player would be? Like the league is talking about rebooting now, and for the past couple of months now, players have been off. What would they all be staying in shape? Would they be lazy?
The majority would be staying. First of all, they'd be very angsty. They would be anxious to get back to the ice surface because that's their profession, that's their work, their employment. So that's what they know. They want that dressing room camaraderie. They want that competitive side that comes out where they're playing their games and trying to win games. It's their lifestyle. But the majority of them, they're either having the gyms made in their garage or in their basement, or they have a shed, or they're working out. Some may be entertaining a different sport at the same time by themselves in the yard. When the virus was completely shut down, they had to find ways and means on their own. And every hockey player that's competent will diligently find a way to make sure that he's training his body and his mind. Now, you may have the occasional one that is going to benefit from, maybe he was injured. He had maybe a broken ankle or whatever. So he has time to rehabilitate and be well prepared for when it does start up again. Because when it starts up, they all are well aware that it's going to be difficult because they're going to have to start playing games practically immediately when it starts up. They know that the competition is going to be very strong. They are unaware of all of the rules and regulations, except for now they've just finally brought that out, how they want to do it with the 24 teams. But the bottom line is simple. You're only as good as you're prepared to be and as you're willing to make the sacrifices to be. And I believe that the majority of players, those that I know, they've actually had time, too, to actually take time to hone other skills that are related to the game. They're watching more videos, paying more attention to other players, other teams, other situations, working on areas of the game. Maybe they might, like I think one of the players that's in the Nashville organization is actually working on some martial arts to make sure that he's able to, not just to fight, just to be able to defend themselves in a tight area on the wall where scrum breaks out. So he'll be able to at least know how to defend himself a little bit so he doesn't just get himself banged around and maybe end up with a concussion. Another player, maybe he's playing chess just to improve his thought process of the game, thinking ahead, having a thought process ahead of time, being able, anticipation, so forth. But the strength and conditioning, they're all working on that. They're all working on that in their own way, in their basement, in their garage, in their shed in the backyard, or in some private place where it's nobody was there but them. They were only allowed in on by themselves. But they're all doing it. Trust me on that.
Well, John, you're in contact with a number of different players, either already in the NHL or trying to break in. You also know a number of people in coaching positions around the NHL as well. How much control would the club have over players during the pandemic and the lockdown and the shutdown?
None. Nil.
Nil.
There's no control.
Is that right?
There's nil. Yeah, because you can't have groupments. Say, you could only. They were limited to stay at home. They were allowed to go back to their countries or to their respective home base, wherever that may be. Far from the eyes, far from the heart, as we say, but not from the mind. You can think that you have a certain control, but you do not. You trust the players.
Right.
Players are all given during the off season, for example. When the season's over, they all have a training program. They all have professional trainers. They all have their agencies. Their agent has their preferred trainer, athletic trainer, et cetera, and so forth. So that's up to the player. The team is not going to make any interference, I should say, into something that's normal, that's expected. Now, if something is, they need some help, or maybe in certain areas, yes, it's there. But other than that, no, the contact is going to be more humane than anything else. That's all.
Would coaches be talking with players saying, okay, I want you, this is your homework. I've got 4 hours of video I want you to watch. I'll talk to you about it tomorrow. Would that type of thing be going on at all?
No, coaches will suggest. We make suggestions during a period. Say we've never lived the virus. I mean, we've never had a pandemic then hockey where we had to shut it down. So basically what's happened is all new. Certainly certain coaches are probably talking to, like, let's say your first-round draft pick, second-round, third-round, your draft picks, whatever. You may be discussing with them what their development coach may be saying, well, you need to work on this, do a little research on this, et cetera. And, no, to have a programmed assignment, per se, like we would do in the off-season during the regular year, no, this kind of hit it was unexpected at the time.
Okay.
So it's kind of left up in the air to the player.
I mean, athletes are passionate people, and there's no doubt about that. I mean, that's an understatement, of course. You have to have a certain amount of passion to, to play a good hockey game, or to go into the corners, or to, dig deep, or whatever, when the score is against you. But with all of the news, everything that's happening in the news right now, and, players are passionate, like I say, is it possible that some of the news would be affecting them emotionally that could affect their play? Or are there some things they would have to guard against, or that type of thing?
Well, hockey players are human beings, and social issues are important to them the same as to anyone else. And they're in a situation where often they're scrutinized a little more than the average person. Most certainly, if you're listening to Tucker Carlson or Hannity or Laura Ingraham and on Fox News, which is what we would call probably today the new form of Jim Crow or KKK or supremism, that's all it is. Then you could be, you could do that in a long way. But the majority of athletes, they've traveled.
Yeah. They've
experienced other things. They research. You're not going to fool them like the person that doesn't pay attention to anything else other than that's cultic and swears by, let's say, one of those 3 people that I just named and swears by them. They're not going to do that. The hockey player is going to take a little more time to investigate. He's going to stay out of it. He's not going to become involved because his agent is telling him, well, hey, don't say too much. We don't want to create any havoc. Or, maybe his GM or ownership doesn't want him involved. But the bottom line of it is simple. It's very simple. They're human beings, and they have feelings and a thought process. And the majority of hockey players, they know they disagree with radicalism. They disagree with racism. They disagree with outrageous avenues of society which affect all, because they understand that what affects one will have the same or similar effect to another, regardless of their cultural background, religious, et cetera, and so forth. So I'm sorry, those 3 there, they do not benefit of any much leeway in the sporting world. They prey on the people that do not research. I'm not saying they do not exist on other channels, but athletes no, you can't put us to sleep like that. I'm just calling them out, that's all. I'm just calling them out. I'm just saying it like it is. Those 3 are dangerous people.
Well, that's good. Are you excited about the reboot, the NHL, with the format they have with the 24 teams? And you're kind of going right into the playoffs right off the top. There's no real season. I mean, it begins with a best-of-5 round, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, they have no choice. Due to the constraints of the game and the teams, because it's a business again, like we said, and they revenues, salaries to be paid, et cetera, and so forth. But so they have to find a way to complete the season. You just can't come out and say, well, okay, we're writing off the whole playoff and 2019 and 20 season, and we're going to go right into the 2020-21. No, they're doing the right thing. The majority of the players understand it. They know that, and they're willing. They're anxious to get out there.
Oh, they're chomping at the bit.
They want a champion. They wanted somebody. They want a Stanley Cup winner. We want a most valuable player. We want to see everything get back to as much as to normal as possible. But no, it's just no. They'll be playing in July hopefully and get this thing on. They're tired. They've had their period of restraint at home. They're ready to go.
Well, we've talked about a couple of things, and I've enjoyed and found interesting some of the things we've chatted about here in this opening episode. What do you think some of the things we could talk about in the future could be? Because I really would like to bring on some guests, and I think we can link up a few guests here and there. I know that you're connected to a number of people. The one person I know in the NHL is Alain Roy, who is from Campbellton, and he's Alain. My goodness, I mean, he grew up 4 doors away from me, and he's done so well for himself. I tease him. I say, "You're the real famous Raw goaltender. You know that, right?" And he laughs about that. But I mean, even his dad knew my dad very well too. And went to visit him in the hospital and stuff like that. So I have a soft spot for him doing well in the NHL. But I think he would make a good guest. You think we're going to have to Alain? He's agent of a few players in the NHL right now.
No, Alain's a very competent person. I've had the pleasure of knowing Alain since the 80s. So basically the bottom line is it's people like that. He can bring a different viewpoint also and be very helpful to any listener that's out there that's maybe participating in the game or has a child that's participating or just they may be a simple fan. And they'll find out little things that they weren't aware of that maybe and have a different viewpoint of different players and understanding they go into a hockey game or be wanting to be an athlete, et cetera, and so forth. There's a lot more to it than what we're told. It's like anything when we're making vegetable stew. We know all the vegetables that come with it. So the bottom line of it, Alain can bring another aspect of the game that's interesting. The other coaches, players we could have on would be very interesting. And I'd like to discuss the Akim Aliu incident, too.
Absolutely.
With, Peter's, I'd like to discuss that. And it's a social issue. And all it comes down to is you have to be willing to exchange. And instead of it's not always being disruptive. And it's not always talking about the past that creates something beneficial for the future. You use the past just as a stepping stone, but what's more important is actuality right now. And there's more to blame than just one side. It's not just a black, brown, religious, etc., or white thing. It's a cultural thing, and it's something that can be improved, but you have to be willing to sit down and listen to the other person, and whether it's something you agree with or disagree with, you have to be willing to listen. And if you listen to them, then after maybe hopefully they'll listen to you. And then that's how you make progress. Rules and regulations do not necessarily create a good atmosphere. It's when you start understanding and take the time to respect each other. And even if you disagree with the person, as long as it's not disruptive and there's no violence involved in it, if you're discussing, once a discussion is started and you're willing to listen, I think that's the first step. The National Hockey League, I have a certain viewpoint on that. I think they missed. They did something positive with hockey, diversity for everyone, hockey for everyone, but they also missed out on how to properly present that. They could have done a better job of educating the public and that part of it. But they do have positive benefit from what they were trying to do. It's just that it's not what we need in 2020. We need it to be applied in a little different manner with the same thought process, but with a different result.
Well, Akim Aliu pointed out very well, too, in his article that the NHL is taking steps to make it better. But at the same time, they're the end of the road. They're not the cause. They're not the beginning. That's kind of like the results of everything. You need to change. You need to change it all the way back. It has to go all the way back to the house leagues and the parents and all the rest of it. So and you certainly come by this story very honestly as well. If we decided to delve into it a bit, because you, as the first Black professional coach in hockey, and winning a championship and everything that you went through in your journey. I mean, there are some horror stories in there as well. So, but that's not what it's about. It's about you understand, where it's coming from. The glasses are off, so to speak.
Yeah, we've had enough of the stories. You see, everybody knows my history, or any sports person that's really a fan or that's involved in that very tightly. They know. So we don't have to reiterate that.
Yes.
What we have to do is find answers so that we sort of limit what's going on actually today in today's world, to find answers. It's not going back and talking about, well, this guy did this to me and this place this happened and this police did this. No, that's not going to change anything. What's going to change something is if I can sit down and say, well, maybe if we went around it this way today, that this is beneficial for everyone, because it has to benefit everyone, not just a one person, not just one culture, not just one religion. Has to benefit society in general. Yes. And that starts with education, and it starts at the table at home. And the NHL they don't prone. There's no such thing as proning racism or exclusion. The National Hockey League does not do that. They're managing. They manage. Their management. They're the ones who run the program. So what they do, they have a trickle-down effect. The trickle-down effect is that they provide the opportunity to expand upon what we would call more normal activity, more normal ways and means of interaction between different individuals, coaches, ownership, managers, et cetera, and so forth. Because the problem is not at the NHL front office. It's in the dressing room. It's at home. It's in the minor hockey league arena. It's a general manager or the head. It's the hockey staff, the scouting, et cetera, and so forth. Mm. That's where your problem is. The agents. There's where it is. It's not the NHL. No, the NHL is just a managing form of preparing a league to present opportunity of employment for individuals to be able to make a living within a profession that they chose. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, well, they all have different agendas and different things that they're working for, in different ways to provide a living for themselves. They all have different occupations that they're trying to serve, is what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And but Stephen, the bottom line, it comes all back down to who are you as a person. Mm. Who are you as a person?
Well, there's a good thing, for upcoming episode, and that could tie into the Kim Lou story as well, too, because, you've often, in your book, you talk about kitchen table values where, the parents will discuss good values with their children and talk out different situations with them and help them through the different things,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, most definitely. And when we get back to that, the everyday person that's listening, they're unaware that if you're let's say you're a black hockey player or a brown, they don't understand that there's also a black and brown problem coming at you, too. It's not just a white Caucasian problem that you may have with a few. You may have some of your own. You do have a black player saying, well, I'm more white than I am black. So it's ridiculous statements like that. Or why are you playing that sport with those white boys? It's, they're caught in between two worlds. So basically, there's a lot going on that Joe society is not quite aware of.
Well, yeah, it's quite complicated.
We shoot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah,
we can talk about all of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, these are great topics for future shows. And also, I'd like to, since you and I, on a side project, we're working on developing these conversations, between general managers and coaches and different other aspects of the game. Mm-hmm. I think maybe we could perhaps record a couple of, or show a couple of sample conversations. Maybe that might help people understand the game a bit more too. You think that might be a good idea for future shows?
Yeah, that would be a positive. And what our main objective will be is we're going to talk mainly as the time goes on. We're going to talk about the games, the results of the games, the players that were performing within it, not within a negative intent, our only point of view will be coming from an information side.
Yes.
Well, so-and-so made this play that was made because of this situation. Not anything else. There'll be no personal thought process within it, not telling them what to do, not trying to advise them what they should do, but just explaining what transpired during the game or during the season. Why is this team in first place and this team's in fifth, et cetera? That's what we will do.
Yeah.
But the personal side of it, we will leave out. We'll leave that to the fan.
We'll just strip the layers off and show them what's going on.
Yeah. We'll have fun with it. We'll be controversial a little bit because we're not going to tell stories. We'll tell the truth.
Absolutely.
If players, we will call a player out, but it won't be because we didn't like the player or the jersey.
Well,
it will be because he didn't do his job on the ice and we will say why and who.
And we'll reach out to that player, give him a chance to defend himself.
To explain. And if he wants to, and he will. They will, once they see that we're teasing them, too. Because if you do things respectfully, they will answer and they'll be available. If you disrespect them, it's like anything, nobody's going to come. They know that if they're making a decision and that decision wasn't the right decision for that given moment, and not a personal thought process, but a game concept process where the game's on the line, then they know. Then they know they have to answer for it because they have to answer to their teammate in the room or on the bench. They have to answer to the coach and thousands and thousands of fans that were watching, and maybe 1 million fans that were watching. So they don't mind doing that. It's when you try to tell them, well, you should have done this, or why didn't you do that? Yeah, no, you can't do that. It's an action game. It's spontaneous. Making bad decisions and good decisions is part of the game. And nobody's perfect. So, and I'm one of those, far from it. So the bottom line is you just give them the opportunity to explain, well, why did you make that decision on that play, that given play at that given time, the score of the game? Just ask them. Yeah. That's all we're doing for information to help improve the knowledge of the fan, the listener.
Yeah, we can all understand it a little bit better. Maybe even the player too. Who knows? Maybe we can help them.
Well, we all learn. It's a continual learning process. The other day, I learned from an 8-year-old at a golf course.
Well, there you go. I'm staying away from the 8-year-olds. I don't want them to show me up. Really.
Well, he was hitting a fade, and I asked him how he hit the fade. He said, "I can show you how I hit it, sir, but I don't know how to explain it." So I said, "Okay, I have trouble hitting a fade, and I can't explain it or do it." So his 8-year-old's hitting a fade, but he showed me.
Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Gotta love it.
Okay.
All right. Well, look forward to the next episode, and thank you for joining me, John. I look forward to what we can uncover and where we can go with this. Let's go down the rabbit hole and see what we get here on Downhome Hockey. So I'm Steve Bujold, and I am in Gatineau, Quebec, and my co-host is John Paris Jr., and you're where in that cold, sunny place of?
Fort Worth, Dallas, Texas, and I'm going out to play some golf right now.
Well, I'm going to hit stop then on this interview right now, if that's what you're going to say. Have a great day, John. Thanks for joining me.
You too. Thank you.